Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Think Tank Sports Podcast. Think Tank Sports, where we think and you listen. Check us out on the social media after we post this podcast. Well, we still got some stuff out there, so check us out on social media. You know where we're at. If you haven't listened in a while, check us out on X, Twitter, I guess is what it's called these days. Facebook and YouTube. We're going to be out there, and we are back and super, super excited for the World Series. Why are we excited about the World Series, you ask? Our New York Yankees are in it for the first time since 2009. They finally broke through. We're excited to talk about how they got there, the team they're facing, and all of the amazing storylines that are going on with the World Series. Here we are on Thursday night, one night before the World Series begins. And if you had forgotten, I keep saying we, if you had forgotten, this is a two-person podcast, as you hear some snickers and noises on the other end. If you're just listening on the audio, Mike is back with us. We are back together, of course. And Mike, how the heck are you?
Dave, doing great. Something as powerful as the 2024 New York Yankees bringing us back on these vaunted airwaves today. So let's just jump right into it. What a great season by the Yankees. I don't know about you. It was filled with some early moments that were exciting, and then there was kind of, the dog days of summer and the doldrums of, the West Coast trip this year seemed to last forever and a day, that kind of stuff. But the Yankees end up, with the best record in the American League and home field advantage throughout. And while some pundits would tell you that's not as important as it used to be, it's still pretty important in my book. Now, the Yankees did get lucky that they didn't have to travel out of their own time zone. Oh, I guess they did when Kansas City is not there.
Yeah, with Kansas City.
But didn't have to go to the West Coast. Didn't have to go to the deep to the heart of Texas. Didn't, have to make those longer, more grueling trips. So great setup for the New York Yankees. I don't want to hear this, you had the easy path. We had the path that was in front of us. And those teams had those records and were in those positions for a reason. I think we saw with the Guardians, who we kind of, I think, thought we were going to cakewalk through a little bit. They feisty is an overstatement. Jose Ramirez is a stud. Class A, really, their all-star pitcher really let them down. But if he performed to regular season levels, we might even be tougher. So I don't know, just some general over thoughts before Jeremy comes on, buddy. Anything you want to say in particular or dive into?
Big picture wise. Yeah, certainly, they played the Royals, right? They played the Guardians. These are teams, though, and their kind of scrappy style of play that in past postseasons, the Yankees have just not been able to beat, right? These have been the teams that have gotten the big hits from either, the stars or, the eighth or ninth place hitters in the lineup. That did not happen in these two series. And I think a big theme of this, and we have over the years beaten up Aaron Boone, his management of the pitching staff and his lineup decisions, putting Rizzo in, was a little bit of a risk because he hadn't played. And, quite honestly, Birdie and Cabrera had played, I would say, more than admirably defensively at first base. He has made some really, really great moves and great decisions this postseason. And honestly, if you look at his body of work with the Yankees, that's really not been his best characteristic.
Yeah, I don't know if they loosen the reins a little and let him make those decisions this postseason. Maybe to set them up for failure if they, had a scenario where they didn't win. But I think one of the more underrated moves, subtle as it might have been, is bringing Chisholm to bat up between Judge and Stanton and dropping Austin Wells down. And you see immediately in that game, Wells just looks more relaxed, launches a bomb, that his swing is built for. And, we're not looking for a lot of offense from him, but it's just one of those little tweaks that a manager has the insight to make those moves, not in the analytics department or, the nerds in the front office, as I like to say.
Yep.
That's just one of those things that made sense. And I think you hit Rizzo and the bullpen, the way he managed them, and Matt Blake, great. A lot of credit goes to him and what he's done with the pitching staff. It's just been tremendous. What they did with Luke Weaver to turn him into a shutdown closer, it is incredible story. So I agree. We have to give Boone some flowers there. And I just mentioned Chisholm, Cashman did bring him in, mid-season, and that's kind of really the only tweak. I know you and I were clamoring pretty hard for the Martian Jason Dominguez to get his shot at the end of the season, to have his moment, and he still might get a pinch hit here in the World Series. You never know, but he's, they didn't overmanage. I think that was almost as important as not doing anything at all. Sometimes you make moves just because you could get to justify your job. But
no, I totally agree. And I've been listening to a lot of talk about, and there's been not a lot of conversation about Aaron Boone and the moves he's made and how they've positioned some things. So it's interesting to me,
right.
for sure. So at this point, we're going to get into the World Series. We have our West Coast correspondent, Jeremy Hamlett, is going to come on. He has been, and he'll tell you this, and we'll prompt him for this. He has been to a game in every series the Dodgers have played. He has tickets to Game 2 of the World Series. And consequently, he's gone to all Game 2s and lost. The Dodgers have lost every game he's been at. So we'll see. But he was at Game 6. So without further ado, we will bring Jeremy in, and then we can really get into the Dodgers and everything that's going on in the West Coast. Jeremy, I just gave you a rousing introduction. So we are so excited to have you back. And what's going on out there? And you're out on the West, because I was saying that you've been at a lot of the games, all the Game 2s that they lost. As Yankee fans will say, we hope they lose Game 2 when you're also there. But how the heck are you, and what's going on in Dodgerland?
Everything's good, but I was there when they won Game 6 against that other New York team, so maybe Game 6 is when I need to be back there, to win the other New York team. But no, good to be back with you guys. Everything's going good, as you can imagine. On your side of town, it's the same over here. A lot of excitement. Everybody's ready. The big thing, news-wise, is traffic. I don't know if you all heard over there on that side of the country, but in addition to the World Series game, there's a Laker game tomorrow. USC randomly has a Friday night game at the Coliseum. There's a big high school game at SoFi, and there's a concert down at the Intuit Dome. So they're already talking about just crazy traffic, specifically in that part of town, especially.
Listen, I'm not going to listen to traffic complaints from a guy who lives in 80-degree weather for 95% of his life, living the life of Riley out there in the shadow of Chavez Ravine. Your poor traffic. Wow. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Wow. So hey, Yankee fans, if you're out there going to the Dodgers game, Game 1 of the World Series, get in your car now.
Leave now.
Yeah.
So yeah, but no, and I know we're going to talk baseball, but specifically Dodger Stadium, where the Lakers play downtown and where the Coliseum are all within 4.5 miles of each other. So it's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Wow.
But no, the excitement for the game is big. You know, everybody's really excited, especially that it's Yankees. You know, we've all thought about this matchup.
Sure.
We're just glad it's not the Astros.
Yeah.
But yeah, especially that it's Yankees, all the nostalgia, you know, all that big stuff is coming up. So no, we're definitely excited out here. You've known over the years when I've talked to you guys, there's been some frustration, especially for long-term folks that they get into the playoffs but then don't do anything. So this season and this postseason's been nice because they've made it back and now they've got 4 more games to go.
Yeah, and
So,
very similar with the Yankees too. And uh, the Yankees didn't slay the dragon, if you will, the Houston Astros, and that's fine, whatever. But it's interesting. The teams are very similar, and I feel the Yankees the same way. Like, got into the ALCS a bunch of times and lost, had some disappointing playoff losses. So for sure, Mike, you were gonna chime
uh,
in.
Jeremy, do you feel like the if a World Series win would happen for you guys, heaven forbid, would it validate the COVID 2020 title? Um,
Uh,
or is that just going to stand on its own forever?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I think winning this year will validate the last few years of getting to
Okay,
the playoffs and blowing it, you know, especially NLDS. You know, I'm okay losing championship series, but these teams shouldn't have lost in NLDS. So I think it might take away some of that bad taste in the mouth.
fair
But
enough.
we could have a whole nother podcast on 2020. But even though it was a shortened season, there were different things that those teams had to deal with.
Hmm.
All the
Sure.
teams that played that season. So I don't even think that title is anything less because there was some crazy stuff they had to deal with. But I think what winning this year is really going to do is take away the taste of the last few years that have just been disappointing. You know,
Right.
having great seasons, winning 100+ games, doing all those amazing things, and then not making it to the World Series. And it sounds right, a luxury of riches, right? It seems like, wow, you
Hmm.
shouldn't even be complaining.
A 1% problem,
Some
right?
teams don't even make the playoffs. You know, our neighbors down the street in Anaheim don't even know what a playoff game looks like.
No, they have no
So,
clue.
Oh,
but to your point, I think what it's going to take away is what's happened the last couple of years. I think that would get validated if they can win the next 4.
Yeah,
right.
no, that totally makes sense. So on the sadder note, and we've been texting about this week, the passing of Fernando Valenzuela on Tuesday. Fernando Mania, the 81 World Series title, Cy Young, and all of these things, and everything, the no hitter in 1990. All of these things that Fernando brought to the Dodgers and brought back so much to baseball. Can you talk about that a little bit, Jeremy? I know, again, we've been texting about it, but I think it'd be nice for the fans to hear your perspective and then how LA is feeling with this huge loss from this icon of the team.
Yeah, you know, he was definitely transcendent. He was an ambassador. You know, in the nuts, we've been texting about it, and it was really sad when we found out that evening, and then, you know, texting back and forth. And a few of us had, you know, met him over the years or had stories, and, you know, listening to talk radio out here the last couple of days, even like Oral calling in, Baker, some of the old guys that like knew him,
Mm-hmm.
coming up. He was, aside from baseball, was just an amazing guy. Um, and the big piece for him, that maybe people outside of LA don't recognize, is that with him being Latino and specifically Mexican, when he came in, he just resonated with the community. Like we were texting earlier in the week, if you look at footage from the 60s and 70s, it's mostly white people that are at those Dodger games. It's not
Yep.
how it is now. And it was Fernando that changed that. You know, there was a lot of regret and still hurt about what happened with Cesar Ravine and Chavez and how it used to be a community up there, and then in eminent domain, just like they built the freeways and a lot of other things. But
Mm-hmm.
there were families and people that were displaced to build that spot. And a lot of Latinos wouldn't go there because of that. When Fernando came here, he changed that. They started going. And then the other thing that happened, and I've heard it from a few people this week, they said that they finally saw somebody that they could resemble and someone that they could resonate with, that, okay, I can go play baseball too. So he had, aside from what he did, you know, you think of starting 8-0 and the 6 shutouts and all the things that he did and his, you know, unorthodox pitching style and being kind of pudgy and not really looking
Mhm.
like an athlete. Like aside
Yep.
from that stuff of what he changed for the game, like to the Latino community, it just meant a lot. And then for him staying on and doing the Spanish broadcast for all these years, just keeping that voice there. Like there was one person that was on the radio, just a random call-in person that said his grandma, who was Mexican, knew nothing about baseball. But when he started pitching for the Dodgers in the early 80s, she was watching and listening to the games. And the guy was funny. He's like, we had to explain to her everything that was going on because she had no idea about baseball, but she wanted to see what was Fernando, you know. And one thing I'll share, a lot of people don't know this story, is that the scout that went down there for the Dodgers to that small town in Mexico wasn't even looking for Fernando. If you know the story, he was there looking at the shortstop, but the Fernando pitched that day. So you think of life, right? You never know what's
Hmm.
going to happen with life. So Fernando randomly pitched that day. So when the scout came back, they're like, "How was the shortstop?" They're like, "Don't worry about the shortstop. We got to get this pitcher." So I mean, and if he wouldn't have pitched that day, there may have not been Fernando. So that's a story I hold on to. Is just you never know what's going to happen with life. You know, that Fernando pitches that day and forget the shortstop. We need to get this pitcher.
Yeah.
That's a great perspective. Great
Yeah,
perspective.
just tremendous. I heard a short clip today, this week, from Steve Sachs, who said, you know, hey, you know, he was a great pitcher, but what a great guy, and how he used to. He said, you know, I think he was talking about the pitchers, and they'd be like walking through the dugout, and he would like throw these little like lassos around their feet so that they would like get stuck and couldn't move and stuff. And he said, but that was the kind of guy that he was. And I, like, for me, I'd never heard that before. So I thought that was amazing. And your stuff certainly, Jeremy, is great. So we know, heard today they're going to be wearing these patches on the jerseys for him. They're going to honor him, you know, tomorrow night at game one. Uh, just tremendous, you know. And on top of the fact, all of that, as we tie it back into the games, is the Yankees and the Dodgers played in 1981 in the World Series.
Right.
So just adding a little bit more to it, and they haven't played since then. So the Fernando connection and the Yankees and the Dodgers is really just tremendous.
And notoriously, Steinbrenner broke his hand punching the elevator after that series with the Dodgers. So just to wrap up Fernando talk real quick on maybe a little lighter note, he is known for his rookie season, as we just talked about, and his Dodger career. He actually played 17 years. That surprised me to read that. And he was with 5 other teams besides the Dodgers. Any you guys want to take a shot in the dark, or maybe you know any of the other 5 teams off the top of your head, real quick?
And then we could talk about the Mexican League teams too.
Right,
He played in the
right,
Mexican leagues for a while.
Yeah,
right.
wow. I don't remember. Did he? I'm gonna say the Padres. Did he play for the Padres?
Padres and the Angels right there in
And the
California. He
Cardinals
was
were one too, right?
Cardinals, yep.
Yep.
Sheesh.
Phillies and the Baltimore Orioles. I
Wow.
can almost picture him in a Padres uniform, but the other ones you know, no clue that I guess I shouldn't say no clue, but I've forgotten that his career was so long and effectual everywhere he went. So,
Yep.
rest in peace, Fernando, for sure. So let's take it right up here to 2024. We look at the lineups, and one of the things we texted this week is your boy Kike Hernandez, Jeremy. Dude scares Yankee fans. Didn't like it when he signed with the Red Sox. Fortunately, he burnt out with them, but he seems to be someone that should have been a lifetime Dodger and will probably be remembered in history as a lifetime Dodger, even though he didn't do much outside of it. How important are those guys that Tommy Edmonds, another one, the glue guys, you know, at the bottom of the lineup that just are so clutch? Talk about their impact on this really star laden team. You know, you got 3 MVPs at the top of the lineup, and you know, it can get pretty thin at the bottom, as we've seen with the John Birdies of the world playing for space for us. So you talk about their impact real quick on the series, you think, in the playoffs in general?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it. It's the Kikes, it's the Gavins, the Maxes, the Tommies. They're the ones that got us here. I mean, Mookie did good the last couple of games, but if you look back at the NLDS, like he forgot that we played in October at one point. Freeman
Yep.
getting hurt, it's a big deal because he's protection, right? So now these pitchers
Yeah.
can approach Otani and they can approach Betts a little bit different. But to that point, Otani and Betts got to figure it out, and hopefully they do in the World Series. But to what you said, it was that bottom of the lineup that got us through. At one point, Max, I think it was 8 or 9 consecutive at bats he got on, whether walk or hit, which was good. At first he was pressing early in that NLDS, and I think that's because he was out for a couple months, and I think he just was pressing. And I think in the championship series, he got back to his good eye and just walking. Kike, he's just energy. I mean, if you talk to people around town, he's a fan favorite. I was expecting him. You referenced the 2 game 2s I went to that I'm obviously the bad denominator. But in the championship series, he came up twice with bases loaded, and I was there like, this is it, grand slam, triple, double, he's doing something. And both times, like that's how we look at him. We just expect that to happen as opposed to Betts and Otani, as much as they're good and we love them earlier, especially in the NLDS, we're like, man, figure it out. But
Yeah.
Kike, we look at different. We're like, we expect him to do it because he's done it, to those numbers that we talked about earlier in the week. It shows that in the amount of times he's been in that spotlight, he produces. So it's really going to be that middle, the bottom of the lineup that does it. And hopefully Otani and Betts can, capture what they caught towards the end of the championship series and keep it going. And the one random is Freddie. And if he's going to be ready, and if he helps us or hurts us more by being in the lineup, he definitely helps by motivation and a team leader and all that stuff. But sometimes at some point that
Very good
physical
first
is
baseman.
is going to be the part that hurts us more. So
Sure. So from a Dodgers fan perspective, who in the Yankee lineup um, gives you the heebie-jeebies when they come to the plate? Like, we know Soto, Judge, and Stanton. So outside of our big three, is there someone in the rest of the lineup that when they come up, you're not too sure how it's going to end well for the Dodgers?
seems like you got Grisham doing things once in a while, so I'd be worried about him. And then you talk about going back and forth between teams. Verdugo could be one, as a former Dodger that can have something to say with this series. He's familiar with Dodger Stadium. So he might not be as nervous as some of the other folks might be. But yeah, those guys, stick out. And of course, Soto, Judge, Stanton, it's you guys have an incredible lineup. I was watching that last game, and I mean, Soto's got 2 strikes on him. He's fouling pitches off, and he looks unbalanced and looks like he's frustrated. And then he pops it out to dead center. Like,
Yeah.
how do you even approach that? And our games are going to be warm.
Right.
It's going to be in the 80s probably tomorrow and again on Saturday. So the ball flies out of Dodger Stadium much more when it's warm than when it's cold. So
Geez.
that could be
Good
a
point.
factor, at least for the games here, with the warm weather that, that pop that those guys have.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's a huge factor, right? Because you just in general with the summer, certainly on the East Coast, they'll say, oh, the ball is, flying out, and then it gets cold in September, and it doesn't do that. So that'll be interesting to see. Yeah, Verdugo is an interesting one for us. He's really, I think, from the Yankees' perspective, has been in there for his defense. But he has come up in the playoffs multiple times, and with runners on, he seems to focus in a little bit more and has had some big hits with runners on. So he's definitely somebody to watch out for, no
And then
doubt.
Rizzo would be another one, but I feel he's kind of in the Freeman boat right now, right? Just based on his
Yeah.
physical ability at this point.
Yeah, I think he's banged up a little. The fingers are still healing because they were, broken a couple of weeks ago. And he's on clearly in the backstretch. Don't sleep on Gleyber. Gleyber Torres has been an absolute table setter for the Yankees in that leadoff spot, and really has been tremendous this offseason. So don't sleep on him. Let's get to the pitching staffs, because
Yeah.
why would we want to get to the pitching staffs? Obviously, we feel from the Yankees' point of view, Jeremy, that we got a big advantage. I don't think you have anyone that can match Garrett Cole. And frankly, Rondon is right there with who's your other guy? I can't think of my head, but your other starters, Walker Buehler.
Walker Buehler. Yep.
Yeah. So, and then I feel like you're possibly going to do 2 bullpen games if it's a 7-game series. How do you feel about your pitching staff going into this?
That's been our Achilles heel the whole season, has been that pitching staff with the injuries that we've had. We got Glass now. We were excited about that. I mean, imagine what difference that would have been if we had him in this series. Bueller, the last game he did was really good. Even us in the nuts were like, we weren't sure how he was going to do, but with how good he did, the talk out here is that they but that they would have him start out in Yankee Stadium because he's one of the starters that could probably get through that pressure and a big spot like that. Yamamoto, he's hit or miss also. And it's funny because the newest guy, Flattery, is the one that seems to be holding it down. I think the one thing for us, you mentioned the bullpen game. I think we're okay with that as long as Roberts, and I hate to always be mad at Roberts, but as long as he does it the right way and does it with the right leverage side, because there was that one game against the Mets where he kind of threw in the towel and, left people in for 3 or 4 innings. But I think if he goes back to doing the high leverage guys that can get, those 3, 4, 5 outs and then move on to the next one, I think that we do have an advantage with that. So the bullpen game doesn't really, I don't think it worries us. It's just how Roberts uses the pitchers. But yeah, to your point, we're probably looking at starters, Yamamoto, for sure, Flaherty and Bueller, and then the rest is however we're gonna hodgepodge it together. So yeah, but that's been all season, right? Especially with the injuries that we've had. So it's something that we've dealt with all. If you would have went back to the beginning of the season, that we were excited, and that would have been a strength of ours was the pitching staff, and that went out the door, 2 months in.
How is Yamamoto? I've only caught a couple of innings here and there this whole season with him. Is he? I know the numbers, but are you confident when he goes and takes the pill?
He's good. I've seen him live.
The boogie down. Will you be confident?
Yeah, I've seen him live in a couple games, and he's good. He's got good mound presence. He works good as he's going through the lineup. I think he just got rattled in that game against the Padres, and I think it took him a couple days to get that out of his head. And hopefully now with the rest in between those series and the World Series, and even seeing him warm up. He throws the ball in warmups basically from center field all the way to like the stands to the base where the stands are in down left field. So I mean his arm's amazing. He's got great mechanics. Again, seeing him live a couple times. So I do have faith in him. I think for him it's more mental. And I think that's what happened in the San Diego series. I think it just got mental. So hopefully he can get past that. And like I said, Bueller seems to be the one that we'll throw it back to old school, like we're talking about with Fernando, but go back to Oro and like the bulldog mentality. I think Bueller's the one that's perfectly aligned to go throw at Yankee Stadium and just be that bulldog and put all that pressure and all the outside noise out and just focus on that mitt and throw it. So, the one thing that's been frustrating for us as we've gone through the series is, we'll score 9, 10 runs and then score 1 or 2 the next day. With our pitching staff, we can't do that. We have to be scoring 5, 6, 7 runs a game because even if you guys get your 5 or 6 runs, which you're going to get, if we get 7, that's basic math, we're still going to win. So aside from the pitching and the issues we have with pitching, as long as we're not just scoring 1, 2, or 3 runs, we'll be okay. If we're only scoring 1, 2, or 3 runs, you guys are looking good. But if we can get up 5, 6, 7 plus from there, I think we can keep up even if a couple of your guys hit it out. I think that's what we ran against, right? They stopped scoring at some point, and you guys just were able to overpower them, and they couldn't keep up with the scoring.
Right. I think they got tired on it, frankly, and I think the high pressure had them crumbling a little bit. Real quick, I know I've been dominating the conversation here a little bit, Dave. Let me paint a picture for both of you. It's Game 6. Yankees are ahead 3-2. Coming up in the top of the 12th inning, both bullpens are been taxed, and we've got Judge, Chisholm, and Stanton coming up. Will
we had Mike.
World Series on the line.
Go ahead.
Biggest part of our lineup. The other options are options you don't want. What do you think, Jeremy?
You cut out. Were you asking if Otani's going to throw?
Yeah, just an inning. Just yeah.
Well, I mean, he has. I'm sure you've heard it out there too. He has been throwing on the side a little bit. So that's leading to the speculation. And there's been some talk at the sports radio out here that if it came down to something, I mean, you were very dramatic and specific. You might want to put some money down on that specifically, and we'll see how you do. But there is talk that if something like that came up, that if he would come into that kind of situation. So I haven't seen it in person. He does it way before the crowd gets there, but I have seen it on video that he is throwing a little bit. So I don't know. Yeah, the situation you describe, it's, now you're making a choice between legacy and long-term injury, right?
Right.
So
right. No, they wouldn't put him out there willy-nilly. They're not putting him in the fifth inning of game 3.
Yeah.
It'd be a high leverage.
Yeah.
So I was just curious of what you thought.
No, they've been talking about it here, but we're so excited for him to start pitching next year. Definitely. But with the situation,
when he's a New York Met.
Oh, God.
No, you're gonna pick up his 700 million.
Cohen would. Yeah, Cohen definitely would.
Yeah, Cohen. Oh yeah, he did.
He's not going anywhere.
No.
Oh, geez, that's funny.
And maybe I'd answer it this way: for as diehard of a Dodger fan as I am, in that scenario, I would rather him not pitch because I would want him in and healthy for the next couple of years. So that would be. I'm not Roberts and I'm not Otani, but as a Dodger fan for a lot of years, I'd rather see him healthy and get us back there for a few more years instead of doing something that could really hurt him.
Thank you for sharing that. I agree.
Yeah, and sacrificing just kind of the one moment, the one season for multiple seasons. It totally makes sense. I think what's interesting, in talking about the pitching in general, and the pitching and also the hitting, the New York Mets set a postseason record for most runs given up in a 6-game series. And so what's interesting to me is, the Mets pitching was not great. I don't want to say the Yankees pitching is great, but I would say it's substantially better than the Mets. And so I know you talked about, they need to get their runs. What do you think, Jeremy, is how are they going to get those runs when they're going to be facing what I'm going to say is a lot better pitching than what they faced against the Mets?
They got to get deeper into the counts. I think the Mets also set a record for, it was like 30 plus walks in that series against them as well. So they got to get deep into the counts. And then that's where your superstars got to perform, right? That's where the Betts and the Otanis have to really come through, because to your point, now they're going to be facing that top-notch pitching. Then it's up to our top-notch batting to come through. And then to the point from earlier, having those middle and end of lineup guys either walk or get that bloop single to keep the lineup moving, to get those guys more opportunities to either get looks at your Coles and your other pitchers and get them out, or get those extra looks that when that slider comes in the 3rd time, they're on it, and when they missed it the first 2 times. So I think it's a combination of our superstar players living up to that billing, and then the middle to the end of the lineup, moving the lineup along to get those players to keep getting more opportunities.
All right. We know you got a hard out here in a couple of minutes. We appreciate the time you took today. So give it to us, buddy. We'll lay out. We haven't given our predictions yet. We probably will wait until after you're off to do your refereeing duty tonight. But tell us, what are we going to see in this World Series? Winner, number of games, and maybe an MVP. If you're feeling crazy tonight.
Crazy. So, it'll come back to LA for sure. So I'm going to say 6. So I'll say LA and 6. And since we started him off when we were talking about folks, let's give that MVP to Kike. Let's see if he keeps it going through the World Series and give him a MVP.
Does he have one? An MVP? World Series MVP?
No, that was Seager.
Oh, yeah.
Seager was 2020 was the MVP.
I'm wondering, did Kike get maybe an ALCS MVP when he was with the Red Sox? Was
Not
he
with the
on
Dodgers
that?
though, for
Was he
sure.
on that 2018 team that went to the?
Well,
Oh, I
we'll
don't
look it
know.
up and let our fans know,
Yeah.
But
afterwards
yeah, I
here.
think it's definitely going 6. So I'll call it at, I think it goes 6 or 7, but I'll call it at 6.
Okay.
So,
Very good. Very good. Anything else you want to add before you step out here, or if you anybody else we can keep an eye on? Some maybe give us a dark horse for a surprise hero for Los Angeles. I know Kike
from the Dodgers
wouldn't be a
side,
surprise. Yeah, on the Dodgers side.
I mean, Theo Oscar is an obvious choice. Um, Lux, if he can catch fire, he's a good hitter. Muncie's another one, especially
Yeah,
if he keeps walking. That I think that's really what got him back on point was him walking, and getting on base and getting comfortable.
yeah, his swing in Yankee Stadium, he's certainly someone that doesn't make me comfortable, coming to the plate no matter who he's facing. I think he's a tremendous hitter and professional.
And the
In
one that
that
I
way.
wish, and I think we all wish would just figure it out is Chris Taylor, but he has just been floundering all season. But it would be nice if he caught fire now because he's done good in the postseason season for us before, but this season, I mean, he wasn't even at the Mendoza line the entire season, so he'd be another one that hopefully
Sure.
your listeners know what the Mendoza line is, but yeah, he'd be another one if he can get going. He'd be useful because he's been in some clutch situations for us before, so it'd be nice if Taylor could get himself going.
Sure. Sounds good. Dave, anything else for Jeremy before he gets
No,
on out of
I
here?
don't think so. It's just great perspective. And obviously you've been dialed in. We've been dialed into these series and our teams. And so we so appreciate you taking a little bit of time. We know you've got your refereeing that's got to go on tonight, and we know you squeezed us into your busy social calendar. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, anytime. Miss being with
All
you
right.
guys. Appreciate it. Nice that the Yankees and Dodgers
See you
finally
on
did it and matched up.
see you on the text chain, buddy.
All right, guys.
All right.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Thanks, Jeremy.
You guys still
So
rolling or did you cut?
Oh, we're
no,
still rolling.
we're gonna
We're gonna keep
Oh,
chatting because we got
we're
to
gonna
give our
give our predictions.
perspective.
Yeah.
I'll text you about something else then on the side.
All right.
All right, sounds good.
Bye,
Thanks,
guys.
sir. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. I was thinking Kike was earlier, but no, he was in Boston 21 and 22.
Yeah, I don't think he had really
2021, 2022.
success in Boston at all. Yeah.
No, not really. Yeah, nothing. I mean, not those years, right? Boston just didn't
Right. Just
get
different
far
team,
enough.
different set of situations altogether. So,
Yeah,
but obviously, like I said to him, he scares me. I think he's a tremendous player. He said, Teoscar Hernandez. I don't know. I have always felt he was a little overrated from his Blue Jay days, but maybe that comes from seeing him, 19 games a year in the American League East for 4 or 5 years. But certainly has the raw talent, to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, their catcher Will Smith, he really dropped off offensively. I mean,
Yeah.
he used to be a real threat, and I know he's been around a minute and is still tremendous with the staff and all that stuff, but not even so.
I was reading, this week, he was hurt for a long time and just kind of came back, and so it's kind of like gotten into his groove this last little bit. So it's scary. These teams are very, very similar, very, very balanced, which is why they're here in the World Series, right? These are not teams that got major luck and won a bunch of crazy different spots. That's not the case. These are two of the best teams in baseball, and they've got talent and across the board. So we're obviously not just for New York and LA, but for everybody that's going to watch, and all the baseball fans are really hoping for a really competitive series. I agree with Jeremy. I think 6 games minimally.
Role, they've had some injuries at pitching, but their lineup's been pretty consistent all year, and so is ours. We think about the beginning of the season for the Yankees. DJ LeMahieu, obviously, his season didn't turn out, or his career, for that matter, hasn't turned out what we hoped it was going to be when they re-signed him. And then Wells taking over at catcher for the back half of the season. But other than that, brought Chisholm in. But relatively healthy for the Yankees, especially with the big guys. There's a few little stints, but nothing earth-shattering. And I think that's really attributed to both teams' success. So, do you want to give your prediction, buddy? Or
yeah. So I'm with Jeremy. I think 6 games, minimally. I know. I feel it's the Yankees in 6. I really feel that their starters are going to be the difference. Now, I know they're going to be facing a deeper lineup than they did with Kansas City and with Cleveland. But I just feel like the starters are just going to be that much better. And what that's going to translate into is the Yankees getting into the Dodgers bullpen more often than the Dodgers get into the Yankees bullpen. And when you get into, games 4, 5, and 6, that's when you're going to see the difference. And Jeremy even, mentioned it, even with the starters getting through to, seeing the slider the 3rd time around. That's where I think the difference is going to be. And it really is splitting hairs. It could very well go 7 games, but I feel like with the Yankee starters and not having to do a bullpen game from the beginning anyways, I think that's the difference. So I'm going to say Yankees in 6.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going back to LA, like we've all said now. I'll take the Yankees in 7. I think this has got all the earmarkings of an American Classic, a World Series. I just think about those last three games, with the Guardians, and now we're taking it up one more notch. And I'm excited to see the moments that it creates, and the heroes, the unexpected heroes. I'm sure there's somebody that we're not talking about, although I think Jeremy mentioned everyone on the roster when I asked for one person.
Yes,
but that's fine. I don't know. I guess I don't believe in Verdugo as much as he does, but he's seen him play more than I have. I think he's been better than I thought he was going to be going into the season, but I don't see him as hero potential. Hopefully I'm wrong. I'd be happy to be wrong on that. But there's nothing else to really say that you guys haven't said. Cole can't be understated, having a bulldog big game pitcher that can go 6, 7 innings. Really a dying breed in this sport. The Dave Stewarts and Jack Morris's just don't exist anymore. But Cole's probably as close as you're going to get modern day to that type of pitcher, power pitcher, Verlander, in his day, all those guys. So I think that's, if he's worth 1 win in a 7-game series, but I think he's worth more than maybe 1.5, and Rondon, I think, has really turned a corner compared to what his season started out to be a disaster. So when you put those two together, I'd take those two against Buehler and Yamamoto, or whoever you want to throw out there for the Dodgers. Of course, the only thing I'm concerned about pitching wise is attrition. Boone clearly likes. There's only a few people he believes in. It's Canely, Holmes, and our closer, and Weaver. Yeah, the Dream Weaver. When TJ Hill or somebody else has to come in, that's a bad sign. So I am worried about that. You might see Marcus Stroman in a relief effort. Luis Heel could be he has closer type material. So he could be a factor. But I'm going to take the Yankees in 7 in a classic. Yankee Dodger rivalry that, just continues through the mist of time. So that's where I'm at.
I think it's going to be a great series. Let's hope it lives up to the hype and doesn't end up, knock on wood, in some sweep one way or the other. I really don't think it's going to. These teams are so well balanced, and they're going to be, taking punches from the other one and punching back. You've got the mix of veterans and young players, managers that have managed for a while. You really have every piece to make it a really great series. So we're certainly hopeful that would be the case. I've heard this, and I don't know if you heard this, Mike. They were comparing the 1981 World Series, which we referenced earlier, and what the ratings were for the 1981 World Series.
No, I haven't heard this.
They were averaging 40 million fans watching that series.
Wow.
And it's tremendous. 40 million is a ridiculous number. They'd be lucky to get half of that in this series, just based on.
You'd be lucky to get 40 million people to go vote for the presidential election.
Right, exactly. So, there's going to be, I'd love to see them get really great numbers, but just, you look at over the years, it's just not going to happen. They'd be lucky to get half that. So it's just interesting how times have changed, and baseball's certainly taken a bit of a backseat to some of the other sports. But hopefully, with LA, with New York, drawing in some of those big markets, we can see some better ratings. And we'll see what happens. Look, they got if it's 7 games, they've got 2 Friday night games and 2 Saturday night games. Those, just from when are people home and watching things, those are 4 nights where they could get some really good ratings.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I don't know if you got anything else, Dave. I would like to pledge between me and you and our, 2s or 3s of fans listening, no matter what happens, I'd like to come back and just wrap up the World Series real quick. Obviously, if the Yankees win, it'll be more jubilation, but either way, and then we can go from there. But,
absolutely. We definitely want to wrap it up. We've said all of this out there, provided you all with some great perspective from Jeremy on the LA scene and the Dodgers, and he was just spot on. That's as good as Jeremy's ever been with us, on point all the way through. We definitely want to come back and put a bow on this, or I don't know, a pile of poop if the Dodgers win. Whatever you want to say there. But we definitely want to bring it back around and summarize up the World Series. And again, hopefully it's a great time. Hopefully, we don't talk to you for a week and a half because we're going to Game 6, Game 7, and things are going good as far as that goes. But we hope, everyone, that you have loved our World Series preview here, Yankees and Dodgers, getting ready to start Friday night, tomorrow, or today, if you're listening to us on Friday. We're excited about it, if you couldn't tell. Thanks for listening, tuning back into us after all this time, and keep your ears to us. Watch our social media as we continue to post up stuff as the World Series goes on, and lots of other things too. Obviously, the NBA has started, and NFL and all those things too. So keep us in your thoughts. Keep the Yankees, for you Yankee fans, keep the Yankees in your prayers that things go well and we can have a great wrap up. But that's it for us here on Think Tank Sports, where we think and you listen as we strive for 5-star rating from you all. See you soon, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.